what we found in doing this consistently is we have a lot of interest in clients, and clients definitely get value from this. But one thing that has been true every step of the way is people looking at what we've built and how we've built it and asking questions. And so I want to just take a minute and kind of like be transparent with entrepreneurs or business owners or people that are working in a job, and just talk about a couple of things like what makes the Barndo Co. the Barndo Co. What's up, guys? So I want to take a minute and just kind of get real and transparent with our viewers. We've been doing this podcast now for almost a year, and providing consistent content on a weekly basis about barndos and leadership and, process to building, fundamentals of building, the style that we build, answering questions from consumers, and giving some insight to different types of entrepreneurs and stuff like that. But the one overwhelming question that we get all the time seems to come from like this entrepreneurial mindset. People that are in business, and you don't have to be in the Barndo business to look to it or ask those questions. And oftentimes the people that are messaging me have absolutely nothing to do with the barndominium space. But the question is always like, how did you get here? And I don't want this to come across as like some kind of like ego pump. But I do want to take a minute and kind of unpack some of the things that make this company special. And what my focus has been and what my role has been in that since the beginning until now. And it's ever changing, and we're always doing things to try to increase engagement, increase production, increase our ability to service clients, and then also add immense value to the people that elect to work here. So this thing kind of started off, and I've shared that story numerous times with me and Ross. It just kind of started with a conversation and a handshake. And then, we started focusing on like what has to be true for this to work. And I think the biggest tip that I could give somebody, no matter where you're at, no matter what it is you're trying to do, would be to just start. Version done's better than version none, always. And there's so many different perspectives on this kind of stuff. But like for me, I would say, that you have to believe it. And how do you have a belief in something? You have to have a belief in something based off your experience with it. And for like barndominiums, it's something that was always like a passion of mine. It's something that I wanted for my family. And I've told the story about, my dad and his business partner. They'd built this Barndo that was kind of happenstance. They built a building and then they later turned it into this. And actually my dad's partner lived in it for a period of time. And I always thought it was fascinating. It was just a really cool place to go. And it was on Lake Murray. You go down there and it's a big 50 by 100 foot steel red iron building. And they just kind of converted it into different uses over time. And then it became like this lodge. And it forever stuck out to me as like, I want to do that one day. And so I think that if you'd asked me 3 years ago or 10 years ago, hey, do you envision yourself as being some like barndominium person, expert? Absolutely not. I was just a normal person who liked them. And so when the opportunity came, like I think my own personal interest in it was piqued because it kind of fits into what my background was. I grew up in construction. I own a real estate company. It checked a lot of the boxes of things that I had skills in. But more so, it was just something I was passionate about. Again, as a consumer, I wanted this for myself. And so when we started this, it just kind of was naturally something I was curious about. And then I'd had some experiences with leadership and business to where I was able to create environments and grow product lines. And, there was a point in time not that long ago where I was traveling the country, developing products for construction niches, like inside the insulation industry, the house wrap industry, like roofing industry. And I was in such a weird product environment that like the products that I was selling are not stuff that you would see as a consumer. It was literally to the installers. And I remember creating these ideas and products and creating the environment, how we could manufacture them, and then creating the distribution, process for getting that product out to market. And a lot of it was just grassroots, going and meeting people. And it was like the foundational years of me becoming who I am. Just walking into businesses all across the country, from the mountains of Colorado to, the plains of Texas, and just walking in and introducing myself and trying to convince someone that I could deliver on a product. And it built something in me that, like, forever, I kind of wanted to be the best salesperson on the planet Earth, and I consider myself to be that person. And that was it. But another piece was happening in there where I had to learn how to market those products, right? Like, why would someone come to me? It's absolutely exhausting to go to them all the time. And so over time, I started building processes for, like, how to market and all these things. And I think the one central thing inside of that success was I was always willing to do the work. And I think you get in environments where everyone wants the reward, few want the work, right? And so if you're starting something, or you own a business and you've owned it for the last 25 years, but you know that there's just more there and there's a capability to be there, that there's one thing that you have to get real with, and that is, what is your own personal level of belief in what you're doing? And the way that I did that was I sat down and I just kind of wrote out what the dream was. Hey, barndominiums, how passionate am I about it? I want to buy one, right? Like, I want to build this. I want this. And so, like, it's definitely something I was passionate about. But then, like, what do I want it to look like? And I can remember sitting down with notebook paper and just drawing out these ideas on paper of what I wanted it to be like. And I remember one of the first, instances was I was like, we're going to become the D.R. Horton of barndominiums. And you could interpret that a million different ways, but the way it was coming out of my brain was, I want to be known as the company. When someone thinks of this, our brand and our name and our reputation is synonymous with the product. And so that's what we set out to do. And I knew that in order to do that, it was way bigger than just TJ. It was way bigger than TJ and Ross. It was going to require a team. It was going to require a lot of hard work, a big vision. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we limit the vision to our own skill sets. And that's why you find people that are in these environments and they're working at the maximum limitations of themselves. And they themselves are very high performing individuals. So they're successful, right? They're financially independent. They're able to do a lot of work, but they're also under a lot of stress because they're trying to do everything themselves. And they never quite learn how to transfer the workload. And that's something that I struggled with as well. But the difference was, I've always been very trusting in that people could do it. I've never looked at myself and been like, what I'm doing is special. And we just recently read a book called Beyond the Hammer. And our COO had a relationship with the author and got to go up and spend some time with him and stuff. And, he gave me a copy of this book, and I'm just kind of reading through it. And there's 5 pillars that the author outlines in the book. And the first one is belief is transferable. It's a great book. You should read it. Guy built an incredible company and exited that company. But one of the things in there is, like, belief is transferable. And I feel like I could have written that chapter and that pillar myself. Because there's one thing that I learned a long time ago, was that when I shifted from trying to sell a product to just trying to sell a vision, things started happening that were more powerful than my own ability. And so that in and of itself, I think, is the secret to success in anything you're doing. Is the vision big enough to support the dream that you have? And if it's not, right, if it's not something where you get excited about the vision, how could you expect anyone else to? And so, like, again, if you're a consumer and you're watching this might not be your cup of tea. But if you're a business owner and you've watched this and you've kind of wondered, like, how in the world these guys do what they did in 3 years? Well, 100%, it was a God thing. I'm a believer, a man of faith, and I lean into that like nothing happens by circumstance. It was a perfect timing, a perfect place, perfect opportunity. And we seized the moment because we were willing to put in the work. There was a lot long hours. There was a lot of long days. There was a lot of time of sacrifice where I had to sacrifice time that I wanted to spend with my family or time that I wanted to do this to really focus and refine what it is we did. And what was unique about Barndo is we had the vision before we really even had a dialed in product. And I think a lot of times people get it backwards. Like they want to get really good at the product and then go build the vision. And that may work. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of people. But in my experience, the vision always has to be bigger than the product. The vision always has to be bigger than the process. And the vision has to be all encompassing, right? That vision has to be big enough to inspire employees, has to be big enough to inspire trade partners, has to be big enough to inspire you and your family and the sacrifice it's going to require to get there. But it also has to be big enough to be transferable and build confidence in the consumers that are going to come in and do that. And that's been the focus of this company since day one, is what is the vision? And the vision for us was, hey, what's this? We went through this process where we kind of structured out, like, what would the dream year look like? What would the next 3 years look like? What would the 10 years look like? And that's part of like the EOS, Gino Wigman, rocket fuel kind of process. And I remember like part of that's like this big, hairy, audacious goal. They call it a BHAG. And the 10-year for us was to become the DR Horton of barndominiums. And shout out to them because, they've done a good enough job for me to consider them the elites of their space. But I wanted to become that to barndominiums. Well, what would that require? And then you kind of get put in this weird place where you're forced to start imitating, right? And you got to imitate before you can implement, because you're not going to understand everything that's happening, but you have to look at the structure of others, right? Success breeds success. And so you have to look at, like, how are they operating? Who's the owner of that company? I don't know. I have no idea. So obviously owning it is not a significant piece of the public eye or the public spectrum of a company. The owner of the company doesn't really create the value of the company. It's the culture of the company and what they were able to do as a collective. And so that paradigm shift in me went from, hey, I need to be the star athlete, to no, I need to be the person that is recruiting star athletes, that's giving them a vision to where they can come in and they can fulfill everything that they've ever dreamed of themselves, and challenge them to rise above what they even thought possible for themselves, to collectively go out and produce something where people become raving fans. And that for me was like this big paradigm shift, whereas like I have to become less for this to become more. And in the beginning, it was just two guys. It's two guys, and then it was two guys in a small broom closet office, and we kind of divided the divisions of labor, where sales and marketing was TJ's wheelhouse, production and finance was Ross's wheelhouse, and we operated that way for a season. And then, I hired a executive assistant, was the first hire that we made, and then we hired a kind of an operations guy, and that didn't work out. And then we hired some trade guys to come in and be like project management, and some of those worked, some of them didn't. And we were just constantly, reconfiguring the machine because we knew very clearly what the vision was. And we never built it around an identity. We built it around what has to be true. What is the seat required for this to be successful? And we never tied it into any individual, right? And so we started building and building and building and building and building and tearing down and building and tearing down and building. And then, sometimes that becomes overwhelming because you feel like you're not moving the needle. But the reality is if you already know the destination, the process to get there, you don't know. And so you don't change the destination based off of the resources you have. You have to keep focusing on where you're trying to take this thing, and building and tearing down the necessary things to get it to that place. And we've done that successfully in a short period of time at the Barndo Co, because we were very clear in the beginning what the vision of the company was. And at that time, when we kind of established like the mission of the company, what is the mission? What are we doing? Was everyone we talked to wanted a barndominium. And when we asked people, like, why don't you have one? They're like, well, there's no one that can build it. Or, hey, there's people that can build it, but there's no way I can afford it. There's no way I can finance it. There's not really anyone that does the whole thing. When we look at this, in the very beginning stages, we were dealing with people who had the vision. They knew they wanted the same thing that we're trying to provide. And the only reason they hadn't had it yet is because they hadn't had anyone who could do it for them start to finish. And so it put some obstacles in the way. Like, why can't you get financing? And I've done a whole episode on that. On like literally the first 4 months of the company was me going lender to lender to lender, asking why 1,000 times, and then figuring out, how do I solve it? How do I solve that problem? Well, if that's the reason, let me fix that reason, then go back to them again. And if they deny it again, why did you deny it this time? Let me fix that. And like doing all this work that really didn't create any kind of income. But it was necessary because the vision was so hot, right? We wanted to be this beacon of barndominiums across the country, but we had to start with why is it not already being done? And so after interviewing dozens of clients and bringing people into this journey and seeing people that couldn't see it, like it almost felt like an impossible dream that people had in our area, in our neck of the woods, in South Carolina, especially upstate South Carolina. It seemed like an impossible dream. There were definitely some people that had built barndominiums, but how they got there was either they had a lot of cash, they played a system to be able to pull it off. They had the resources or the experience to be able to pull in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 different trade partners to build this thing. But for the everyday, ordinary person, it was an almost impossible dream to build this amazing vision. And so the mission of the company became turning impossible dreams into possible realities. I did an episode with Mike Claudio, who's now acting as COO in the company, and we kind of talked about that, like, hey, it was impossible, it's not anymore. And so, like, the mission was good. The vision has not changed. The vision is the vision of the company, and we're still working towards that every single day. But the mission was, how do we take impossible dreams, turn them into possible realities? And we pinned our ears back, and we focused on that with laser precision. And we did it, and all odds stacked against us. I mean, you're dealing with tons of battles, right? You got the battle of you're actually building something for people, and that's an emotional roller coaster, and you got to somehow maintain that and maintain expectations. And you got a multitude of personalities and a multitude of people, and everybody's got different stress environments and stress factors, and you're trying to manage that as best you can as a person. And maintain a great experience with these people. In addition to that, you got all these municipalities that don't understand, and they're battling you, and you've got lenders that don't understand, and they're battling you, and you're trying to like form all of this, and slowly but surely we turned impossible dreams into possible realities. So now we've kind of arrived at a place to where it's not impossible anymore. We did it. We accomplished the mission. And so then we were kind of stuck with like, well, what does that become? How do we do this? And so the cool thing about the new mission that's rolling out to the company here in the next few months is like, I didn't write it. I didn't have to come up with it. We built such a great vision and such a great team that the mission changed, and the people that are running the organization and internally came to the table, and they came up with the new mission based off the same criteria in which me and Ross came up with the original mission, right? Their personal experiences with the people that matter, which are the clients, the subcontractors, the lenders, all the people in the ecosystem that make this thing possible. And they said, we need a new mission because we're not working towards impossible anymore. It's absolutely possible. We've built hundreds of these things. We have hundreds more sold to build. It's not impossible anymore. And so kind of in doing that, like the idea behind it is it's a dream. This started as a dream. It's a dream for every family that builds with us. And so, we were just talking one day. We're like, we want to build bigger dreams. We want to build bigger dreams. And how do we do that? Well, through expansion and through reaching out to people who didn't have access to us and moving into new territory and doing all these things. And so the new mission is kind of centered off the idea of like, hey, how do we do this on a bigger scale? So building bigger dreams became like this bridge from what we were doing as a mission to where we're going with a new mission. And we're going to be rolling out a brand new mission statement at the beginning of 2025 with everybody's complete buy-in in it. And I couldn't even orate it to you right now because I didn't play a role in writing it. But inside of that, like there's a lot of things that go into it. So how do you effectively go and get a mission and bring it to life? How do you successfully get there, right? It was a cool milestone moment when we looked at it and said, we set a mission. 3 years later, we've done it. Well, how did we do it? So if you kind of look back at that, it started with like understanding who we were. And you've heard me talk about core values till I'm blue in the face. But core values are what built this machine, and it was a way for us to not only transfer belief, but transfer an identity, transfer core values. And the thing about it is like the more you do it and the bigger you grow and you make these core values a foundational element of your company and the way you operate, you don't have to transfer them. You go find people that already have them, and you find alignment, and you find people in the world. You know, when we do a job posting, it's not uncommon for us to have anywhere from 100 to 1,000 applicants. And that's crazy to me that, you know, like, hey, we posted a job the other day, and just on like Facebook alone, personal messages to me was over 100 people, you know, wanting to know how they could get in to interview for that position. And it's a really reassuring thing to know that you have severely qualified people, but you also have this subjective set of core values that they have to align with to be a good fit. They could be highly qualified, but they don't fit culturally. I've had so many employees on the show, and you've heard every one of them talk about the culture of the business. You've heard every one of them talk about how that culture, you know, has helped them reach milestones in their career or knock down walls in their career, and how they fell in love with the place that they're working in because of the culture there, and we protect it by having it. And only bringing in people who share the same core values. And so those core values were B, we want to be the best at everything we do. It's not okay to be the biggest. We want to be the best. The A was always growing. The only way we can maintain a level of being the best is to always be committed to growing and doing the necessary work to maintain being the best, because other people want to be the best as well. So how do you get there? You know, you go out and you compete and you get better. You practice. The R was really loving what we do. There's plenty of qualified people who could come in and perform tasks and, you know, deliver on deadlines and those kind of things. But if they don't love this the same way that we love this, it's not a good fit. So you got to really love what you do to work here. The N was never stop giving. You know, a big piece of what we do is we give timeless amounts to our employees. We pour into them in unprecedented ways. We make a big deal out of the team because they are the lifeblood of the organization. So we give back to our team constantly. We're always putting them in environments to level them up. We're always, you know, celebrating their successes, their accomplishments. We're always doing these big events and quarterly offsites and bringing them together to celebrate everything that they've accomplished. And then we also partner with our communities and charities, and we give financially and we give of our time. You know, it's not uncommon that on a random fall Tuesday, you come out and half of the staff is out at a baseball game volunteering their time with special needs kids. Or that, you know, in Knoxville, we've got team members that are at a gala of support for a local or regional charity sponsorship that we have, or they're running an event through the community, or we're present, and we're always giving. We're giving time, we're giving money, we're giving resources to everyone that we interact with. The D is doers. This would have never happened if we hadn't have a doer mentality. People that aren't going to look at it and say, well, that's not in my scope of work. I'm not willing to negotiate on that. And you see that a lot in like big corporations where people just don't budge. Well, it's not my job, not my responsibility. That doesn't exist here. And we intentionally hire and go after people who embrace that. And then the O is our legacy is what drives us. And what is a legacy? It's what people remember how you made them feel. It's that moment of like, this is more than just servicing a client. This is more than just, you know, adding another dollar to the revenue. It's more than just an event. It's more than just a contract. It's more than just that. It's how did they feel throughout the process? And we get it right, and we get it wrong, and then we fix it, and then we get it right, and then we get it right, and then we get it wrong again, and then we fix it. And so and everyone is passionate about getting it right because it's a legacy. And so, you know, those core values got us here. And so now we're shifting those as well. New mission, new sets of core values. We're not taking any away. We're just adding to. So again, a brand new set of core values rolling out, you know, expanding all those, the letters of Barndo. Like what do they really stand for now? What do they stand for our employees? What do they stand for our clients? What do they stand for our trade partners? And how do we do that? Like, what are specific things that we can do on a regular basis to make sure that we're absolutely delivering on what we say that we're doing? And so that process is taking place now to where you're seeing all these changes. Well, the reason behind that is because where we are now is vastly different than where we were when we began. And I think it's a constant reevaluation of like who you are. why are you doing what you're doing? If your vision was big enough in the beginning, your vision doesn't change, but the mission changes. You're going to accomplish these things if you set out to do them. And when you do, it's important that you strategically change the mission to increase it. You got to increase the mission. Hey, it's a bigger machine now. Like, we could do more. We can pour into these core values at a higher level. We can give more. We can recruit better. We can do all these things at a different scale. And so that's what's happening. And so now you're seeing us reevaluate those things and build bigger, loftier goals to be able to go out and tackle this thing. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of get stuck in a rut because you started out great and then, you kind of deviated a little bit and then you try to go back to it and then you deviate a little bit and then you go back to it. And I think it's really important to start out and build something with a monumental vision to where it's so big that it seems absolutely impossible. And then you set your ears back and you go after it and you just tackle it one thing at a time until it's not impossible anymore. And then you shift and you start building something new. And that it's been an incredible ride to get there. And so that kind of breeds all kinds of changes. So like inside of this thing that started as a couple guys trying to build a couple barns a year to transform it into hundreds and hundreds of barns and multitudes of states and hundreds of counties where we're servicing so many people. You've seen other things kind of spin off of that, like trying to meet people where they are. So like we've expanded. We don't just build barndominiums, we also design them. So from a full turnkey perspective, we can take somebody, meet them at the crossroads of they've got a vision and a dream, and now we can walk them through that thing from start to finish. You walk in the doors, we're going to meet with you, we're going to design your barn, we're going to help you make the selections of your barn, we're going to tie you into financing, we're going to put you in the driver's seat of this, and we're going to get you across the finish line, and we can guarantee that that's going to happen. And so we're constantly trying to focus on how do we increase the experience of everyone in the organization. And so, again, the purpose of this is a couple things. One is, if you're a consumer and you're watching this, I want you to know what we stand for. I want you to know that it isn't just words on a wall. It's not just something that we talk about. We absolutely live this every single day of our lives. We're committed to being the best. We're committed to growing. We're committed to doing the things and doing the hard work and going and finding the best people and breaking down walls and building bridges into how you can do this and do it better. And we're better today than we were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And we're going to be better than this 6 months from now. And it's a constant level of improvement to continue to reach more people and build bigger dreams. So again, I just want to take one episode and sit down and just kind of be transparent and raw and talk about the fundamentals of building something, regardless if it's a Barndo company or if it's a bakery. The same principles apply. You got to have a vision, and the vision has to be captivating and inspiring, not only to yourself, because if it's not inspiring you, give up on it. Change it. It's not big enough. It's not strong enough. You're not going to be able to build a team and deliver on it and have exceptional results. You got to have a vision that feels impossible, and you got to build that vision from day one. And then you got to start creating milestones and set a mission to go out and prove the vision. And then you just continuously circle that. Build the vision big enough to captivate yourself, captivate your family, captivate future employees, captivate clients, captivate people to come to you because you're solving a problem for them. And that's the biggest success that I could give you. That's the biggest tip on this. None of it is easy. None of it is easy. It is absolutely treacherously hard to take something from the dust of the earth and turn it into a multi-million-dollar, nationally recognized brand. But it's possible. It's absolutely possible. And it's possible even in a circumstance where it was never intended in the beginning to be the sole focus of everything that we were doing. Ross and I both had other businesses and other sources of revenue. And this was just an idea, but it was so fun. And the vision was so big that it was so exciting that we were willing to lay all that other stuff down and just focus on this because it absolutely fulfilled us. And the cool thing about it is now, we got 50 plus employees and every one of them is on the same level. They feel absolutely fulfilled by the vision because it's so big. It's still bigger than we are today. So if you're listening and you wanted just a little bit of an idea, it would be this. And I'll close with this is from day one, I've been people oriented, people focused. and I've got to focus on the people aspect of the business. Ross has been process focused. Right now, Mike is process focused. And Ross is getting to come back over with some of the transitions in our corporate structure to where he's getting to focus more on people again, because he also loves that aspect of the job. But I was people focused, he was process focused, and through that process we were able to build what it is today, and now continue to build it to what it's going to become. But being people driven allows you to have a perspective that has absolutely nothing to do with your product. It has everything to do with the vision, the dream, the experience, and you get to do that and cast that vision and transfer that belief into a multitude of people. Again, with employees, trade partners, and even clients. But it all starts with creating something that's so compelling that you can't even sleep at night thinking about it. And if you're not there, start over, create something new, and find that thing that keeps you up at night, because it takes that level of commitment and the hard work and the thing. There's no luck in this thing. There's no happenstance. There's no chance. It is 100% effort. It is hard work. Pin your ears back and stop at nothing to see it come true. And if you've got that kind of passion and drive in whatever you're doing, the only reason that you've not unlocked the next level yet is because you forgot to transfer the belief. You got to take it from you and inspire it into other people, and realize that in the grand scheme of things, you're the most insignificant piece of it. You just have the ability now to pour it into other people and have them take it to the masses. Because if it's that big of a dream, you'll never do it by yourself. But thanks for hanging out and taking a little step back from the ordinary Barndo Co. Barndo Show experience to just have this little moment where I wanted to share this with you guys. And I hope that throughout this process and watching the podcast and getting to know us a little more and seeing some of the intimate details of the company and getting to see some face value one-on-one time with different employees and different members of our team, that has built confidence in you, that you know that this is more than just words on a wall. This is who we are. This is what makes Barndo Co. the best, in my opinion. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.